Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about a new Pennsylvania law that is affecting lots of different organizations that have volunteers that serve in the state of Pennsylvania. And we're going to talk about different aspects of that law and what we can do to help you out with it. The new law that we're going to be discussing today is titled Act 153. It went into effect December 31st, 2014. And one of the main caveats of the law is it's requiring all volunteers who come in regular contact with children to have some additional clearances done now where these clearances weren't mandated before. And this law is affecting virtually everybody who has volunteers, which includes churches, sports leagues, and organizations like that. Two of the main clearances that are being required now that weren't required before is the Pennsylvania State Police background check, or otherwise known as PATCH in the state, and the other one is called the Pennsylvania State Child Abuse Clearance background check. Both of those checks carry a mandatory fee of $10 through the state of Pennsylvania, and they are now required, whereas before they weren't. Before, most organizations, if they wanted to do screening, they could just pick and choose what they wanted to do. And a lot of our organizations would do this pretty good package that checked the National Criminal Database for any criminal hits out there underneath the person's name and date of birth. It would also check all 50 state sex offender registries for that person's name and age, date of birth. And it would also, prior to doing those searches, run the person's address history showing new names that were found, and free of charge throw in those new alias combinations into those two previous national searches we just discussed. And prior to Act 153, that's basically all people were doing. Now Act 153 requires that volunteers be screened underneath these two clearances, which we're going to get into some more details of those clearances here in a minute. One of the third pieces or clearances that's required as part of Act 153 is what we call an FBI or fingerprint clearance, which unfortunately we cannot provide, and most or no CRAs can provide that at this time, just due to federal statute restrictions and whatnot. But good news, those FBI clearances, they're only required if your candidate, if your volunteer has not resided in the state for the last 10 years. So if your candidate has been within the state and been a legal resident in the last 10 years, then you're okay with just doing the first two clearances, the Pennsylvania State Police background check and the Pennsylvania State Child Abuse Clearance check. And you can forego the third clearance via the FBI fingerprinting. All right, so we've talked about some of the clearances. We're also going to talk about some other implications of this new law. And I like to refer to as more like a ripple effect that you're going to have to look at as far as these additional provisions or requirements. One of the things right out of the gate is it's going to be a higher cost to your organization to get volunteers screened. If you weren't doing any screening before, now you have to. And if you were doing screening before, you probably weren't doing screening that involved those clearances with those mandatory fees of $10 a piece. So right off the bat, the state is getting their cut of $10 a clearance, and they're going to pass that cost on to you. Because you are dealing with the state now, there are situations where the checks or the background results can take up to a few weeks to get back. Both agencies, the state police and the child abuse registry people, will take a search request and put it to what we call a desk review in the event that that request does not come back as an instant no record out of their databases. And so when you're trying to manage a screening program, and you have to now equate for the possibility of, some people might come back today, some people might come back 2 or 3 weeks from now, that can be kind of headachy. You're also going to have more paperwork to manage in this process. Before, you did not have to have these clearances involved, so you might have just been able to do an in and out background report quest. You come in, log in, put the person's name and date of birth and their other credentials in the system, click your background report, submit it to us. We return it within a matter of minutes to a matter of hours, depending on the results. And that's pretty much all you had to do. Now the Act 153, because you have to now go to these agencies, you're going to be managing more paperwork in that process. Another provision, which we're going to get into a little bit more detailed here in a minute, that's in the Act, is the state has set out different types of criteria, or what we call disqualifiers, and you'll have to take your results that you get back from the state, and we're mostly talking about the adverse results, and apply that criteria now that's embedded in the statute, so that candidate, that volunteer, can be approved in your organization. That's just another headache for you to go dig into and go through that process. This process also extends to your current employees as well. Even though we're talking about volunteers and our organizations today that have volunteers, all these checks also apply to your current employees. So you'll want to keep that in mind and do even screening across the board. Some additional requirements of Act 153 are the following. The Act states that the organization must be provided an original result from the state police and from the child abuse registry, and then the organization must keep copies of that original result on file in their offices to show that they have done these checks. These checks, they're good for 36 months for your candidates, so you'll want to keep them on file during that time. And then if your candidate is still serving after that 36 months, you'll want to go ahead and resubmit them through the agencies. The organizations must also apply that disqualification criteria that we were just talking about a minute ago. When you get into the statutes, the state actually lays out all the different disqualifiers, these charges or crimes, and a lot of them are felonies, and they're along the lines of assault and murder, all those types of things that you probably wouldn't want to have your person have anyway if you were, doing background screening and having them be in a position in your organization. What we have done is we've worked with our legal attorney, and they have been with the NAPBS for quite a number of years. That's the National Association of Professional Background Screeners, and their law firm, Arnell, Golden, Gregory, Attorney at Law, they have worked hand in hand with the NAPBS over the last several years with establishing best practices and guidance and insight. And our attorney actually is part of their law firm, and that's who we use day in, day out for compliance issues. And they've put together a nice little piece for us and for you, really, what we like to call a summary alert of this law. And one of the pieces that you'll want to go and visit and dig into when you're out at our attorney's blog is the section on this disqualification criteria. It's really going to lay it out for you in black and white what this criteria is and what you really need to apply to your adverse reports. So we've been going over the different provisions of the laws and the ripple effects, and a lot of it is a lot of headache and heartache for the end user, the organization, our clients. And we feel that we've come up with a lot of solutions to really help you get in and out of this process as quickly and as painlessly as possible. We have developed a unique package called PA 153, which includes all the mandated clearances for your volunteers who have lived in the state for the last 10 years. And those clearances would be the Pennsylvania State Police Search at a $10 mandatory fee, and the Pennsylvania Child Abuse Check at a $10 mandatory fee. This package that we've put together for our organizations, if you were to go out and basically get the same elements and do that same package elsewhere, it would be a tremendous cost. And so we understand that our clients, our organizations are in a unique situation. They're kind of put in a rock and a hard place right now, with all this new legislation that's come out. So this PA 153 package that we've put together, we've dramatically reduced that cost of that package to help you absorb that cost on your end to get this process done. Part of this package, in addition to the clearances, we're also going to do those national searches that we were talking about earlier, where we check all 50 state sex offender registries. We're going to check the criminal indexes on the national level, and we're going to do that also with any new alias names that we find off the address history. And that's pretty good. We're really focused on Pennsylvania today and looking at Pennsylvania, but people always fail to realize that candidates go on vacation, they go visit relatives, they may have lived elsewhere more than 10 years ago. And those national searches are a good catch me all, or you want to think of it as like a big net out there that you're throwing in addition to Pennsylvania that might show you some other adverse information that matches to your candidate. So that package is pretty stout at the end of the day. One of the other solutions that we've got in place for you is we have a secure system that can store all these documents, all these copies for you, these original results of the clearances that you're mandated to have on file anyway. And our secure system, you just want to think of it as like a secure filing cabinet. All your clearances and the copies thereof, it'll actually be the originals. They'll be available to you at a click of a button. In addition to those other solutions, we can also offer you the grading in alignment with the state's criteria. We tend to refer to this as adjudication or grading in the industry, but we offer that service currently to all of our accounts. And basically, the account has to come to us with the criteria that they want us to apply to their account. We take that criteria, we document it, and then any time that there's an adverse report, we take that criteria and review that report against your matrix. Now, there's traditionally 3 types of grades that come out. There's a green, which is a pass, and that's going to be anyone who has no adverse findings whatsoever. There's a yellow, which is a needs review category, and that's someone that has an adverse finding, but it wasn't enough to be disqualified by your matrix or by the state's criteria. And then the last one is a red or a reject or a fail, and that's someone, a candidate who can't get through or can't get approved based on your matrix because they've had an adverse finding come back on their report that matches your matrix to make them a disqualifying candidate. So we can do all that grading for you. That can get kind of time consuming, reviewing everyone's adverse reports and trying to figure out, is this what we really want? We do all that for you. We do it day in and day out. So you'll want to talk to us about that a little bit more if you're interested in that. We can manage something else called adverse action. And now, this is not a PA law. This is a federal law mandated by the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and it applies to all employees and volunteers. And in a nutshell, adverse action is a 2-step dance that you have to go through as an organization to notify your candidate, your volunteer, in a proper method so that they have a chance to review the adverse findings and, if need be, challenge the report. A lot of clients skip over this or don't even know about it, or if they're doing it, they may even be doing it incorrectly. And we've seen in the last couple years a lot of litigation against clients on this subject with adverse action. So we can do that for you. So yes, we can grade your reports and apply the disqualifying criteria, and then when someone's disqualified, we can follow those next steps for you in adverse action to make sure that not only are you legally compliant with the state of Pennsylvania, but you're also legally compliant with federal law as well. As you can kind of see, we can offer you a one-stop solution for all your screening needs. And this includes not only PA law, but anything that falls underneath the sun with background screening. That includes the federal law with the adverse action. We provide you with a consent form that will be in compliance, and you can modify that consent form if you want. But that consent form is another thing that you'll have at your fingertips, which is a good element. Besides being a one-stop shop, we also have a team here that is very knowledgeable. We have several years of experience of people in our customer service department that handle all types of questions on a daily basis, from everything from what's my username and password, how do I read this report, how do I go about adding this service to my account, or even more complex issues. And they're available via phone or email at any time that you need them. You also have a team that I really like a lot and think highly of, which is the compliance department. These guys are really plugged into everything. They're constantly being notified of changes or amendments in state and federal law. They're keeping track of basically a pulse on the industry. So you have that comfort knowing that you can come to our client services and our compliance department for when and if your situation might be a little bit more intricate, and you may need our help to get through that process. Well, speaking of the process, we haven't actually gone over what's involved with this. We talk about background screening, and everyone's all on board, but they don't really understand what it takes to get this report done now. So that's what we're going to dig into here for a moment. So previously we discussed the PA 153 package, and the package includes that national combo search, which has that smart name search where it takes any newfound alias names and runs it through the national indexes for criminal records, runs it through all 50 states sex offender registries. It's going to do your child abuse clearance check. It's going to do your Pennsylvania statewide background police check, or otherwise known as patch. It's going to get you a really stout package at the end of the day. That's great. And that if that was as simple as it would be, then that'd be a lot less headachy for everybody. But unfortunately, it's not. Anyone who's done background screening before knows that essentially what you do to complete the process is you go into a system or you submit a request in some fashion that has the candidate's personal identification information, the PII. That's their name, their date of birth, their social, maybe their address, those types of things. And you submit that request usually to a consumer reporting agency like us, or maybe it's to a state police search. And that agency returns that request usually in a pretty quick fashion, and they give you those results, and you take those results and you run with them. When you're dealing with a company like us, when we return results back to you, and especially when they're adverse, they're laid out in such a way that it tells a nice little story for you, so that you can still make this process quick, easy, and painless. You really know what you're doing. Well, the state of Pennsylvania has decided that the child abuse portion of this check is not going to go in that fashion. We can go to the state police right now. We can submit your candidate's name and information. We can get the results back right away unless it goes to a desk review. We can manage those results. We're on top of it. We don't need anything else except for your candidate's information to get the state police check done and those national searches done. However, it's with that child abuse clearance where it gets a little more tricky and a little bit more involved. What the state is requiring is that the candidate goes out to the state site, starts the process. The candidate is going to have to fill in their own information, all their personal information. They're also going to have to validate some other information that only the candidate knows. So that's hurdle number one, where we won't be able to do that. You won't even be able to do that as the organization. Only the candidate can do it. The other hurdle that the state has put in play is that the candidate has to do an e-signature, which e-signatures are common in this day and age, but unfortunately, we can't do that e-signature on your candidate's behalf, and neither can you. So the state requires that the candidate fill out all the information and submit the request for the child abuse check only, not this police check, but for the child abuse check. And because the state has a $10 mandatory fee on both checks, the state is going to require your candidate to pay for that check at the point of submission. Well, that's no good, because that's going to create a hurdle in your process, and your people are probably not going to be they're not going to be as excited to volunteer, knowing that they're going to have to go in, fill out additional stuff, and pay for it, and it's just going to be a headache for them as well. Well, we've contracted with the state, and we've got a special account with them, and they have generated a bunch of unique codes for us to use that we can provide to our clients on a one-off basis, so that they can have these clearances paid for in advance. And basically how this is going to work is every time you order PA 153, we're going to get that request in our offices. We're going to start working on the state police. We're going to start doing the national searches. But we're also going to generate an email back to you with your candidate's information and that unique code from the state, so that your candidate will be able to pay for their clearance and get through that process. Also in that email, we're going to include little how-to instructions for the candidate, to get on this process, so that they can get through this as quickly and as painlessly as possible. So again, to review, once you order the PA 153 process, you're going to receive back an additional email from us that includes your candidate's name, a Jane Doe, how-to instructions, and this unique code that the candidate's going to use to pay for the child abuse clearance. So as you order Jane Doe, you're going to get an email. You order John Smith, you're going to get an email. Sally Mae, another email, etc., etc. And it's that code that your candidate's going to want to utilize at the point of submission, so that they can pay for the background, the clearance check from the child abuse registry, and get through that process. Now what happens after that is the candidate will receive a copy of their child abuse results, but we will also receive a copy of the child abuse results. And that's key, because there's where we're going to be able to upload those original results in that document management structure that we talked about earlier, which is one of the provisions of the state. We're also going to be able to review those results on your behalf if you contract out with us to do the adjudication, and apply any adverse findings against the state's criteria or the criteria that you provide us in addition to the state. Who knows, maybe your insurance company has even more criteria that counts for fails and rejects on the disqualification level. So basically, we're going to get the package all beefed up for you. We're going to get it started. We're going to do the clearances. We're going to provide you with a unique code so your volunteers can get in and out of that process on the child abuse section as quickly and as painlessly as possible. We're going to review your results if you want us to, and then we're going to make them immediately available to you, and then they're going to be available also whenever you need those copies in the event at a later date. I have our contact information up here for you. If you want to give us a holler, we're here regular business hours, Monday through Friday, or you can just shoot us an email and we'll pick that up in our help desk and respond to you accordingly. I appreciate your time, everyone, and good luck with everything. Thank you.